We are here because we're talking about you're coming to Atlantic City. You're coming to Borgata on Friday, July 14th. Have you ever been to Atlantic City before?
Oh yeah, we've actually been there. The Nelson family is actually from Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, our grandpa actually was born at Holy Name Hospital. Grew up in Ridgefield, Tenafly, Teaneck, and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Jersey City. But my brother Matthew and I actually got prepared for our first record hanging out with our friend Jack Ponte, just south of there. We spent a lot of time in Bricktown.
Oh,
And
nice.
in Atlantic City's kind of an old haunt. We've performed there a couple of times before, but we've never been at the Borgata. So This is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, what are you looking forward to there? I mean, they have a lot of Iron Chefs and restaurants there. They have great gaming and entertainment. Like, what are you looking forward to doing most while you're on property at Borgata?
Well, it's fantastic. Look, I'm an aspiring chef myself. I love food. I call it the big three to me.
Okay.
It's all about great music, great love, and great food. Those are the three things that put the color in all of our lives.
True.
You know, and man, I'm gonna live it up. But it's a storied venue, and it's something that a lot of my friends have played at, and we haven't yet. So, especially with the Ricky Nelson Remembered show that we're bringing, I think it's really cool for the area. And there's a lot of heritage there, like I said, the Nelson family being from Jersey. So It's kind of like a homecoming gig for us.
That's awesome. And so you're the son of Ricky Nelson, so everybody knows him as well. I mean, what does it feel like to have that legacy, especially in one family? I know one of the statistics is you're the third generation of the only family in history to have #1 hits across 3 consecutive generations.
That is correct.
What?
Well, it's pretty wonderful. For us, it's only the family business. It's something that we've been doing for over 100 years.
Yeah.
It's all we know. The real answer to that question, when people say, what was it like growing up in that house? It was our normal, so I really don't know what it was like to not grow up in that house.
That's true.
I mean, for me, when I was a kid, our dad was putting a Stone Canyon band together. It was the second phase of his career, so he was doing kind of like a country rock thing and a new thing. But he wasn't on the road a lot when he was putting that together, and it afforded us the time to actually spend time as fathers and sons together.
That's nice.
That was pretty cool, but to me, because it's all I knew, I thought it was totally normal for someone's dad to always have an acoustic guitar in their hand, be rehearsing a band down the hallway, have crazy-haired friends that turn out to be Bob Dylan showing up. And
I know, wasn't Bob Dylan like Uncle Bob for you? Did he give you guitar lessons?
No, he was. No, he didn't give me any guitar lessons.
Okay.
I actually did get guitar lessons, though, from the legendary James Burton,
Oh.
who was the guitar player in my dad's band when he did Traveling Man, Hello, Mary Lou, Poor Little Fool, the early stuff.
Okay.
But to me, I was always around, so I thought everybody's dad was a rock star. I thought everybody wrote songs, and I thought that's just kind of what you did.
The norm.
And it wasn't until probably I was like 5 or 6 when I took our father to a parent-teacher night, and the teachers were going nuts. So I thought, oh, well, this is kind of different. My dad's a little different from little Johnny's dad, who's a lawyer. It's just a little different thing.
Right. I mean, and some of the other things I heard about that was Mama Cass was your babysitter.
Yeah, again, just our normal.
Right.
It was around the time, when I was growing up, it was around the time in the Hollywood Hills when there was a scene coming out of a small club called the Troubadour, which was down in the Wilshire district on the west side. But at that particular time, you could see all the people that were all hanging out together when they weren't on stage.
Okay.
And those were some notable people that you mentioned. But what was happening out of that club, Linda Ronstadt had just gotten started. Her first band was called the Stone Ponies, and they were put together to be Linda's backing band. And they wound up being the Eagles 3 years later.
Wow.
And Timothy B. Schmidt, who was in the Eagles, was actually my dad's bass player 4 years before.
Wow.
In that same scene. It was like the whole Jackson Browne, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, and Nash were the Buffalo Springfield at the time, so on and so forth.
Okay.
It was a really creative time. And all of those people, when they weren't on stage, as I mentioned, were hanging out at each other's houses. And Mama Cass did wind up being our babysitter. She was just a cool lady that everyone wanted to hang around all the time.
Of course.
But again, it was just my normal.
And then George Harrison was your neighbor?
Uncle George, yeah.
Yes!
Yeah, he was. But you remember, as a kid, I had no idea who these people were.
Yeah, of course.
I just thought that, Bob had crazy hair, and I thought, I didn't know what an accent was, so I called him Funny Voice Guy. But again, I was a baby.
Right, of course.
At the time.
Right, you call people fat, you tell people they have weird accents, it is what it is.
Kids are honest, man. Kids are honest. What can you say? There's no filter.
There's no filter. What I wanted to ask you, kind of off topic, but because George Harrison was your neighbor, there's that whole conspiracy about Paul McCartney. What are your thoughts on that? About him being Billy Shears, really?
I don't even know. I mean,
really?
What am I doing? I've been in the studio forever. What are you talking about?
No, because there's this whole conspiracy about Paul McCartney not being alive. Like, apparently he died in a car crash, like, back in the 60s, and then Billy Shears was replacing him, and then they didn't want to tell the public because it was going to be this whole, mass hysteria. So now, really, the Paul McCartney is not really Paul McCartney. That's the
Well, I got to tell you something. I got the chance to meet Sir Paul 2 years ago.
Okay.
On the back end of, actually, I was on my honeymoon. I came back early to Nashville to meet him. And, man, if that's not Paul McCartney, he does the best impression I've ever seen. It was really the only time I've ever seen not only grown adults, but, I mean, real superstars reduced to quivering children was when they were about to hold audience with Paul. I was in a holding room backstage at the Bridgestone Arena here in Nashville, and I was in this room with Alice Cooper, Reba McEntire, the Brooks and Dunn guys. It was like a who's who in town of people.
Yeah.
And they were so nervous, just like I was, to meet him. And he was the coolest guy ever. He was really great. He actually was a big fan of Ricky Nelson. He did a cover of our dad's Lonesome Town on a record he had about 5 years ago called Run Devil Run. Huge Ricky Nelson fan, because they didn't actually get the Nelson family show over in England. Ozzie and Harriet was never broadcast over there.
That's interesting.
So the only thing that he grew up with was the records. And our father would have been actually really pleased about that, because being on the television show for our dad was really kind of a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
All the people that came after him, as opposed to a lot of people trying to capitalize on his success, he was a very pretty guy and also very talented, but they focused on the pretty with the Fabians and the teen idols, so to speak, that came after him.
Oh, okay.
And our dad, it's important to note, he was actually a musician that happened to be really good on television, and not a TV star who happened to be a good musician. He really had a conscious choice at one point to continue with music or to become a film actor. He did Rio Bravo with John Wayne. He was very good in that. And he could have followed down that path, which was arguably easier, but he decided to actually continue on with the music. And he, up till the day he died, he was doing 300 shows a year, and he actually died on the way to a show. So, I mean, this is a guy who literally lived and died for rock and roll.
Wow.
And he was the most humble guy in the world. And as often happens in art, a lot of people aren't really appreciated when they're around. It really takes them being gone for people to realize in that vacuum what they're missing.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the last show, the Ricky Nelson Remembered show is the last show our dad would ever have done for himself. And I love the fact that God made twins that get to do it for him in stereo. I mean, we're really vocal about doing this show, and it's a real honor for us. The music's unbelievable. The songs like Travel Man, Hello Mary Lou, Poor Little Fool, Lonesome Town, Believe What You Say, I Got a Feeling, Teenage Idol, so on and so forth. But then you have a whole different phase of his career with the Stone Canyon Band, with songs like Garden Party. And the show that we do, we bring video and we tell the story of not only his life, but rock history. And rock and roll really hasn't been around all that long if you look at it.
Right.
It's really been, only about 65, 70 years.
Yeah, right.
That's a blink. And so the story that we tell in the show that we do, it's evolved really into a stage production. It's an equal amount video as it is to the songs that we perform. So I tell people it's best described as an Amy biography episode meets a high-energy rock concert. That's really most accurate.
Okay, wow. Because that's interesting, because I think a lot of people, I guess in my generation or our generation, like they're not really, I guess, relating to your music so much because they don't really know. But when they hear that sounds neat. It sounds like it's going to be a really cool visual experience.
I totally get it. Look, it's a really interesting conundrum for our family. We've been doing this for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And time does march on. I mean, it's been 30 years since Matthew and I came out with our debut record and sold 10 million records of our own to kids who had no idea who Ricky Nelson was.
Right.
But the way the show was put together, I think it really started out being something more more angled for people who grew up with the Nelson Family Show and were intimately aware of Ricky Nelson and his music and his contributions. But things have evolved.
Yeah.
And what started happening was the grandparents were starting to bring not only their kids and their kids' kids, but 4 generations. And that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah. Okay.
And now the way the show's put together, it doesn't matter if you don't know who Ozzie and Harriet were, you don't know who Ricky Nelson was, you don't even know who we were. Right. By the time we get done with you, it's like a whole rock history lesson. Right. But it's done in such a cool, energetic, fun, high integrity way.
Okay.
That when you leave, you've got this whole education on rock history. You actually really make the connection to why it is now. People can take for a given, and it is a given that, you know, you have all the talent shows. You have the American Idols, and you have America's Got Talent and The Voice.
Yeah.
Ricky Nelson was the first guy to utilize the power of television to market music.
Wow.
He did for rock and roll what Eminem did for rap.
Okay.
He was the right guy at the right time to help smuggle the devil's music, if you will, into mainstream American living rooms.
Yeah, because this
He
was
did that
the
for
norm.
he did that for his generation, and it doesn't sound like a big deal now, but we're talking about, again,
Right.
a time that wasn't that long ago when the censors on TV wouldn't even let you coin the phrase rock and roll because they thought that was too sexual.
Yeah.
You had to refer to it as rhythm and blues. Now we got the Kardashians, of course. I get that,
Yeah.
but I mean, just yesterday it was the devil's music.
Yeah.
And Ricky Nelson, as it was said, Elvis Presley turned off a lot of parents. Ricky didn't. Pat Boone turned off a lot of kids. Ricky didn't. He was the right guy at the right time.
He was relatable to the adults and the younger.
Yeah, and he did it in a way. I mean, think about the tough situation our father found himself in. He started performing on the Adventures of Ozzy Inherited, and this was a time, again, when television was brand new. Television was supposed to be a fad. There were literally 3 channels and a local. That was it.
Yeah, I know.
That was it.
Snowy at
So
night.
so when people tuned in to the show, when America tuned into the show,
Yeah.
all of America really tuned into the show.
Right.
There were no other choices.
Right.
And that show wound up being the longest-running sitcom in television history. 435 episodes
Wow.
over 14 and a half years.
Wow.
And our dad started on that show when he was 6. So imagine that you actually are growing up with a whole generation of Americans from the time you're 6 years old, and then all of a sudden, like when you're 15 and a half, you go away for summer vacation, and then the next time, you know, you see that person you've grown up with in your living room,
Yeah.
they went from being the burr-headed, I don't mess around kid to like this fabulously beautiful, oh my God, he's insanely gorgeous guy. And that's what happened in a summer.
Yeah.
And it was that summer that our dad started to sing. But back then, the industry kind of thought that whole free milk and a cow thing. If someone's going to sing for you for free on TV, then the kids aren't going to go down and buy it in stores.
Oh, interesting.
So it was really discouraged. And Ozzie Nelson was really a very, very smart man. Law degree from Rutgers, by the way.
Oh.
He actually thought that they were wrong, so he made sure that there were records in the stores. And our father sold 1 million copies that first week.
Wow.
Doesn't sound like a big idea now, but remember, this is 1958.
Yeah,
This is
back then. Yeah.
over 1 million kids had to actually physically go down to a record store
Yes.
and put their hard-earned allowance money down for a single.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. I don't know what that would translate to nowadays, but
Right.
nowadays, like here we are, we're blogging, we're having this interview.
Right.
I'm sitting here in my studio.
Love
I
it.
am still asleep because I really haven't been asleep since last night. But we're able to do this.
Yeah, of course.
But back in that day, people would have to like go down to a radio station and they would have to do an interview, and
Yes.
things were harder to do back then. And as cranky as I was for getting up early this morning, you know, the fact is, it's easier than me getting on a plane and coming out and doing that.
Right.
Nowadays, our artists are spoiled. They can do that.
Yeah.
They can push a button and hit more people than somebody having to get into a car and sell records out of the trunk of their car. But
Yeah. It's
just
a whole different era.
just yesterday again, people were having to do that. And it's really cool with this show. We get to bridge the gap between that generation and this generation.
Yeah.
And explain to kids why the music that's in their iPod is there or on their phone is there.
Like the
It had to
origin.
come from someplace.
Of course. That is so cool. And you had mentioned the Kardashians. Do you think that they changed reality TV? What is your thoughts on them?
Well, I mean, I know the girls. You know, I've known them for a lot of years back in the days before they were famous.
Okay.
I used to date someone named Kyle Richards, who's on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills now.
Yeah.
And she was in that whole circle that I never identified with.
Okay.
You know, I was always, believe it or not, my parents went through a really bad divorce and stuff. and the family really struggled financially. So I was the poor kid in a rich neighborhood, if that makes any sense to you. Which is actually worse than being the poor kid in a poor neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's harder.
I know. I went to a private school with all kids that were wealthier than me, and I was the poor kid.
So you dig it. You know what I'm talking about. When you're like, hanging out with the Witherspoons and you're a Nelson, it's tough.
Okay.
And those girls were always around then. Let me tell you, here's my real thought on it. It's very difficult for me to go through life still today, having always felt like an analog man in a digital world. My grandparents kind of gave me a standard to aspire to when I was a child. From the first time I could remember, I was watching my father perform off of the side of a stage. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, in order to do that, there was no substitute for putting in your 10,000 hours, so to speak. Okay. I mean, I've literally put in 1 million hours learning how to do what it is I do. Yeah, I know. It's not easy to be proficient in the instruments and the production and the writing and all that. It takes time, like anything. Of course. What the Kardashians changed, and I'm not thinking it's for the better, to be honest with you. Just yesterday, in order to be a celebrity, you had to have an extraordinary skill that you sacrificed for and put in your hours for to be great at for people to celebrate. You were celebrated because you had an extraordinary skill. And you earned that celebrity. Mm-hmm. And you know the expression that nothing given is ever appreciated? Yeah. If you are a celebrity for being a spoiled kid or being pimped out by your mom on national TV for all to see, mm-hmm. and that's the only thing you're celebrated for, I don't think that's a good thing, to be honest with you. Just for me. I'll say this is me. This is not Gunnar, the parent of 3. Okay. This is just me being a guy. Yeah. Not sour grapes or anything like that. But what I love is that every now and again, a new artist will come along and remind us of what we're supposed to be into them for in the first place. Right. They'll have a certain song or something like that that makes you kind of scratch your head and go, wow, man, that is real talent. That's really good. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we actually can recognize that when it comes along is because we've been forced to embrace as the new standard, right? Real substandard talents, so to speak, as the normal. I know. And it really is nowadays. It's about your followers and your socials and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. Yeah. But wouldn't it be kind of cool if the foundation of that particular building was somebody that put in their 1 million hours so you didn't have to? Right. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I've interviewed Paris Hilton on multiple occasions, and that's Kyle.
Well, dig this. I used to babysit Paris Hilton.
That's awesome.
Okay, Kyle Richards is Paris's aunt.
I know.
Okay, so I get it.
Yeah.
And then when you actually nowadays look for what I do, mm-hmm. there's no substitute for woodshedding and being really, really bad and spending years and years and years, hopefully getting better. Right. Okay, that's the way it is. But now Paris can go out and she can go down to Guitar Center and buy a DJ situation and spin somebody else's records on her laptop and fist pump.
Yes.
And she can make more money in a show than I can in a year. Yeah. So, but that just happens, but I don't have to embrace it. Right. What we want to do is, listen, we don't have to be the ones that capture absolutely everybody. Right. We want to put our message out to the people who get it. Yes. Who would get it, who would be open to it, who would see a show and go, oh my God, man, these guys really play and they really sing and they're really funny and stuff. We put thought and care and time into what it is we do, but that's a family tradition. It's always been that way.
And people.
And I suppose it's the biggest disservice to our dad, like during his life and during his career. There were people that kind of assumed, oh, well, he had it handed to him. He had it easy. He was the rich kid on TV and stuff. It made it more difficult for him. It made it more difficult for him to actually get taken seriously by all of his friends and his contemporaries. He used to hang out with Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent. Was kind of like interesting. He had an interesting frenemy relationship with Elvis. Loved the guy. He really did. Okay. But there was only one person that gave Elvis a run for his money in the 50s, much to Elvis's chagrin, and that was Ricky Nelson.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I got word that Ricky was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame the second year, not the first year. Okay. And he was alive when that happened. He was happy for his friends, but I know he was really kind of disappointed and left wondering. But I found out from friends of the family that that Elvis's family insisted to the Rock Hall that Ricky not be inducted the same year as Elvis. Otherwise, they weren't going to let Elvis memorabilia happen at the Rock Hall.
Wow.
There were only 2 people in the 50s that had #1 rock albums. Only 2, Elvis and Ricky.
Wow.
And when Elvis went into the Army, Ricky eclipsed him as far as success and sales. No one had ever done that before. And much to Elvis's chagrin and stuff, Ricky just wouldn't go away. He turned out to not be just some TV star or some pop idol. He actually really had talent. He was really, really good. And those two would battle it on the charts, going back and forth, sometimes singing the same song with their own different spin to see how high each one could chart it on the charts.
Oh my God.
And here we are all these years later, and our dad is actually revered more now than he was when he was alive.
Right.
And that's really cool. Sometimes that happens in art, as I mentioned. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah.
But the Swedes actually have an expression, and we're just a bunch of freaking Swedes, as Nelsons. Every man dies 2 deaths. One is when his physical body dies, and the second and final death is when the last person that remembers him does.
Wow.
And thanks in no small part to this show and the awesome fans that keep on coming to it and building it and making it bigger and bigger and bigger,
Right.
our dad's never going to die. He's always going to be around.
Right.
And we actually really do feel him there on stage with us. I mean, this is as far from pandering as you can get. As I mentioned, it's truly a high integrity show done with love for our dad, who was our best friend, and you can really feel that.
Wow. And I know you worked on a song called This Christmas, with Carnie Wilson.
Yeah.
So tell us about working with Carnie and Wendy, and tell us about the song. Do you play the song in the show?
Oh, I love my girls. No, we don't play this song in the Ricky Nelson Remembered show.
Okay.
We actually have a specific Christmas show that's completely different,
Okay.
and it's called Christmas with the Nelsons, and mid-November we click into that.
Okay.
That's what we do exclusively until Christmas time. But actually doing that song with Carnie and Wendy was wonderful. We wrote the song, Matthew and I wrote the song 2 years before with a couple of friends of ours, released it the first time 2 years ago with a co-singer named Alyssa Bonagura.
Okay.
We love that version, but the entire time after writing that song, I always envisioned our friends, the Wilson sisters, actually being on the single with us.
Okay.
And it took us a while to get the schedules to align. Carney's really busy. She's a busy person.
I know.
I mean, you're always seeing her in something, on something. She's always really busy being Carney.
Mm-hmm.
And she's fabulous. I love that. Matthew and I are always busy being musicians.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's our priority. For Carney, she's got different priorities now. Like she's starting a baking company, and she's a really talented chef, and she was on The Apprentice and stuff.
I was going to ask you about the Celebrity Apprentice. Like, what did you think of her being on The Apprentice?
Well, I think that's, definitely. Look, I've been on a couple of reality shows, too.
Okay.
But it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Apparently, she told me she didn't last very long. I never saw the show. She didn't last very long on it.
No,
But she met somebody on that show that was a friend of Donald Trump's
Okay.
that introduced her to the person who supplies all of the pastries for the cruise lines.
Okay.
And because of that contact from doing that show, she now legitimately started her own baking company called Love Bites by Carney.
Yeah.
And they're fabulous. I mean, it's unbelievable stuff that she does.
Mm-hmm.
But she's at the point in her life where, listen, I got to be honest with you, and I'm not speaking for her, but here's what I've seen from a distance. It's a reminder that doing this for a living, doing what it is I do, is not for everybody.
Right.
Not everybody can do this, and certainly not everybody can do this for as many years
Right.
as I've been doing it. And Carney has also been doing it her whole life, but I've been doing it longer. I started when I was 6.
Oh, wow.
I was playing the LA clubs professionally from the time I was 12 to the time I was 18.
Wow. Okay.
And the girls are awesome, but they learned how to sing on million-selling records, just like my dad did.
Okay.
But my brother and I were slogging it through the LA clubs for years, trying to put our thing together. And it really comes down to this, man. I can't imagine what life would be like without making music. I love it so much.
Right.
I love what I do so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a means to an end. I love communicating with people. But I understand not only what my dad felt when he was making music and wanted to be on the road so bad. My grandfather was really the same way. I mean, he had a big band before he had the television show. And I read his autobiography, recently reread it. And what was really sweet about it is that as successful as our grandfather was on the show at the time, 14 and a half years, that's crazy, but it was much to his chagrin. He always thought that the television show, when he started, was going to be something to do in between runs with his big band.
Right, of course.
He was all constantly waiting to go back out on tour. It was his first love. Mm-hmm. And the damn show kept on getting picked up over and over and over again. Right. And he never got back out on the road. Yeah. That's actually how he met my grandma Harriet. She was a chanteuse and the first female singer in a big band. Okay. And our grandpa put out an ad, and word spread, and then he got word of this young singer named Harriet Hilliard, and that's how they met. But music was always his first love, too, and he always wanted to get back out on the road. And for our dad, as I mentioned, he lived and died for rock and roll. And Matthew and I, for as long as we can remember, and the very first thing that we could actually do physically, we've been making music, and we've been doing this. And all of these years later, watching the implosion of this business that we love so much, and watching it go from, cell phones killed it for everybody, but for creatives, it's kind of one of those things. Great, it gives you access, but I've got 3 daughters who do not know what it's like to pay for music.
Right.
Not just because I buy it for them, but because honestly, that generation never paid for music, and probably never will. Mm-hmm. If you want to see see a band that you're interested in, where do you go to? You go to YouTube.
Right.
Of course you go to YouTube. But what people don't know is all those ads that they have to be annoyed by in the beginning before they see that video for free.
Yeah.
Well, that's really wonderful. The record company gets paid for that ad revenue share. Right. But they don't pay the artists.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
It's yet another way that the man sticks it to the artist. They've been doing it for 65 years. But the rock and roll industry the record industry was founded by profiteers after World War II. They're really good at stealing and hiding money. They're excellent at it. Mm-hmm. And so, in the beginning, you've heard of all those horrible contracts that the pioneers of rock and roll had to deal with. Right. And some of our founding fathers of rock and roll died penniless. Yes. They died destitute.
So is that
after giving us.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Well, is that why? Because I know you guys are unsigned. I guess you were on Saturday Night Live because you were one of, the first unsigned independent artists to play on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, we were actually with the only unsigned band to ever be the musical guest on Saturday Night Live, which was, but that was the first time people saw us. What they didn't see were the 8 years before that we were working in the clubs and paying our dues,
It's
which we had. And
right, go ahead.
It was really a good time. People talk about the whole hairband Sunset Strip scene, but Matthew and I cut our teeth during the skinny tie, new wave era 10 years earlier. Okay. Anything that had a "the" it seemed before their name, we were playing with. We were playing with the Knack. Mm-hmm. We were playing with the Go-Go's and the Bengals and all of those pop acts. And that sounds really cute and sweet, but what people don't understand is all of those acts, and not those acts in particular, but in that scene, it seemed like everybody was really messed up. They're playing these jangly pop tunes while they were addicted to heroin. Okay. And it was really aggressive and competitive. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about a club scene where someone would put a knife in you for going over 5 minutes on your set and jamming them up.
Okay.
But I wouldn't take those years back. Mm-hmm. We were literally kids that I'd be escorted into the clubs, play, and then escorted out.
Wow.
And stuff because we were so young, but man, it taught us to be tough, and it taught us to deal with hostile audiences, and move our own gear, and stuff. I remember I mentioned anything given is never appreciated.
Yes.
Man, we are so grateful all these years later that we get to do this, that I get to have this interview with you, that I get to reach the fans out there and do this. What a blessing this is.
So you never wanted to be signed with a company because you knew you could always just do it on your own.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. No, I always wanted to be signed.
Okay, all right.
But like our grandpa Ozzy, I never let it stop me that I wasn't.
Okay.
Our grandpa started his career with his big band. It was funny. It was just one of those guys. He couldn't read or write a stitch of music.
Okay.
But he never let that stop him from having a 20-piece orchestra. He just went out there and he acted as if.
Okay.
And we did the same thing, too. We were trying to get a deal, but what we found was being sons of made it actually more difficult for us. Oh. In the record industry back in the day, it was kind of like that in a lot of industries now. The ones that keep on actually ascending to newer and higher levels in their industry, they're usually masters at being at all the lunch meetings, being at all the board meetings,
right.
showing up to the shows and the showcases, but they're experts at never really signing their name on the dotted line.
Okay.
They're really good at going, at skirting the "I really believe in this and I'm putting my money where my mouth is" thing. But they always want to be kind of present, and those are the ones in the record industry back in the day when there was such a thing that really got promoted.
Okay.
And so, being a high profile signing, being sons of, they actually, none of those people could have the luxury of hiding behind that signing. It was either going to be a high profile success or a high profile failure for anybody who got behind it. So it was really difficult for us to get that first nod by a record company.
I see.
We tried. We actually shopped our demos for years in LA and in New York. And it wasn't until we actually went specifically for a guy named John Kolodner, who was so established at the time and so ingrained in the fibers of rock and roll, he wasn't going anywhere. And he had done some great signings in his career. He put AC/DC, he signed AC/DC, he signed Foreigner. At the time, he was working with Whitesnake and Peter Gabriel and Cher and putting all their careers together. So he wasn't going anywhere. And so my brother and I actually targeted him at Geffen Records. And it took us a full 3 years of doing demos and writing and playing for John to finally get signed.
Wow.
It was the world's longest overnight success. And we were very fortunate. We had a lot of success with Geffen. And as I mentioned, sold about 10 million records for them. Made them tens of millions of dollars. And then grunge happened. And grunge happened in the middle of our first tour. We always thought that we were going to, like any career, we're going to get multiple albums and get decades to put the whole thing together. But we actually had to weather the single largest paradigm shift in music industry history with the grunge thing.
Wow.
And we really represented, just like our dad did in his day, when the singer-songwriter thing came into vogue, after he had done his early pop stuff, we had to redefine ourselves because the world forced us to. It was different overnight. MTV stopped playing the confidence rockers, and if you weren't addicted and from Seattle, they didn't want to know from you.
Yeah.
And that happened for like 8 years.
Wow.
People stopped playing guitar solos. And, what were Matthew and I going to do? We spent our entire lives building ourselves up and creating a sound and writing our own songs and producing that first record ourselves and doing all of that stuff. And then what do
right.
when overnight, you realize that you're making buggy whips? You're making the best damn buggy whip in the world.
Yeah.
But no one wants to buy them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well, what about your children? Are they into music?
What about what? I'm sorry?
Your children, are they musically inclined?
Oh, they love music. But it's for kids. I've got an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old. I'm sorry, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 16-year-old.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, none of my kids actually like to pay for music. And part of that reason is because music has really become background noise.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and I still feel this way today, and call me a relic, we used to get really excited when our favorite artist records were coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an event. We would look forward to it. There would be a countdown to it. We would go down and we would actually wait in line and buy that record the day it came out.
Yeah, it was a thing.
And then we'd take it home and we'd open up the artwork and we'd listen to it for the first time. And there were no previews on the internet. There was no internet.
Right.
There were no phones.
Right.
Man, this is back in the day when you actually had to go and knock on the door and talk to a girl's dad before you asked her out.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that sucked.
Yeah, I know. It's horrible.
But, it gave us value for that. And so, my kids love music. They really do. And they're classic rockers for the most part. When I'm not in the car, my 16-year-old will totally bump it. But she likes rap. I'm not crazy about it.
Okay.
But that's her thing. But my youngest daughter, she's a Def Leppard freak.
Okay.
And she got to meet Joe Elliott for the first time last week.
Oh, cool.
And it was really kind of neat to see my own daughter, freak out and get to meet her favorite artist and cry. And
yeah.
I mean, it was awesome.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, when you look at the videos of the Beatles and some of these bigger bands and these fans were like passing out, like even with Michael Jackson, I feel like fans aren't the same nowadays. You're not getting people getting that hysterical for bands. Like, why is that?
I don't know. Look, we were really lucky. It's hard to describe this, but Matt and I were the biggest band on planet Earth for a week. I mean, we really were. And we were playing to 60,000 people a night, and they were all chicks, and they sounded like a jet engine. They really did. Okay. The PA company that we worked with actually had to double up the PA because they couldn't hear the music over it. Now, that's something that if you're really lucky as an artist, you get to experience once in your life. We got to, which was wonderful.
Okay.
And it's also something that you want to experience when you're 21, like we did.
Okay.
You want to be a kid, when that whole thing happens. And it is amazing. Sorry about that. This is the joy of doing this live. I've got my dog freaking out because my dishwasher repairman's here.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. No Life goes on.
It's awesome.
Ignore him. He's okay. But I still get to see that, and I got to see that with my daughter. As you mentioned, you don't really see that kind of adulation and that kind of success. Well, no, you do. You have to go to a particular concert.
Maybe a Beamer.
And for the most part, a lot of it is really teen-oriented, which I understand. But I did an interview for Rolling Stone a couple of years ago, and it was on their Teen Idol edition. And they had, like, the top teen idols, top 100 teen idols. And that was really wonderful to do because what we identified in that article is there's a nobility to being a teen idol if you handle it right. Because you're actually, if you're lucky, you're millions of girls' safe first crush. You're not going to break their heart. They can be into you like they would a boyfriend, right? But there's a little bit of distance, obviously some fantasy going on. But you're safe for them, and you help them prepare for real relationships that are to follow. Man, that's a wonderful thing when you think about it. When to this day I meet people who were into my father, like I did, and my daughter graduated 5th grade yesterday, and I got to meet someone's grandma who came up to me, and just, you could see it in her eyes. Yeah. She was 9 years old again. Yeah, she was 9 years old, and she was talking to her idol's son, and she was losing her mind, reminiscing about, this awesome time in her life when, life was just a little more wonderful than it is now. Yeah. And then to know that my family, my father, got to be a part of that experience and watch her there with generations of her family that she built. Right. And my dad was there before that guy she was married to. Yeah. It's kind of a neat thing. So many lives. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it's wonderful. If I see early films from early Justin Bieber concerts or Miley Cyrus concerts or Taylor Swift or whatever. It's still out there. Yeah. It is. It is. And you know what? It's still really cool. Yeah. Being hip is one thing and being edgy and all that's one thing. That's fine. But you know what? There's nothing safe about that. And in our case, when we were starting out, most parents would drop their kids off the show because of my dad being who he was and my grandparents. Man, we had this rare privilege that the parents would actually stay and watch our show.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Now, what about you now what's up with this song that I guess Howard Stern has a song called Silver Nickels and Golden Dimes, and then you sang it. It's apparently all the different celebrities are singing it. How did that work?
Okay, Silver Nickels and Golden Dimes. Howard had a band in the 6th grade called the Electric Comic Book. Okay, now it makes sense. Okay, and he had a cassette copy of a mic in the room of him and his 6th grade band doing an original song that they had written called Silver Nickels and Golden Dimes. And Howard is playing keyboards and being the lead singer. And he sounds like Alvin the Chipmunk. It is absolutely, respectfully, Howard, ghastly. Okay. And Howard knows it. It's horrible. Yeah. And it was this bit that he did on the show, and he kept on playing this because, hey man, I'm a rock star, check out my band, and all of a sudden he would always play it. Yeah. And I guess a few years back, artists started as an homage to Howard, started to cover the song. Now, for the most part, all of those people really copied what he did. Okay? Now, what Matthew and I did, we got challenged by our manager, Jonathan Wolfson, who also manages Loverboy and Hall & Oates, and is a good friend of the Howard Stern show, to do our own version of Silver Nickels. I actually had a deadline of 24 hours. So from the time I got the phone call from my manager to delivery, start to finish, writing and recording, it was 24 hours to completion, and it was done. Wow. We actually approached it differently. We actually kind of imagined that our version of Silver Nickels was the version that Howard Stern heard in his head as a 6th grader
Okay.
singing. This was the one. This is the way he thought he sounded, and the way he thought the song turned out, and what he'd always intended.
Okay.
So kind of like, one step removed, we got to write with Howard Stern, which was cool. So our version of Silver Nickels is, it's a proper song. I love the song, and we liked it so much in the way that it turned out that we actually play it in our Nelson set every night when we go out with our rock band.
That is awesome. Oh my God, that is so cool. Okay, so does he know that you do that?
Yeah, he actually heard the song,
Yeah.
and Matthew and I got to be on his wrap-up show. We haven't gotten a chance to sit down and get roasted by Howard Stern yet. Looking forward to that, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to get roasted? I never want to be roasted, but by Howard Stern maybe.
Are you kidding me, man? I'm a Nelson. We've been roasted for the last 100 years. I'm comfortable with this. I love it.
Yeah, and you had also mentioned too, because I was reading your MySpace article, which, by the way, when I saw that you had this 3-page spread in MySpace, I'm like, wait, MySpace is still available? Like, what's going on with MySpace?
Did I do a 3-page something in MySpace? I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, there's a 3-page spread, like a bio on you guys in MySpace.com. I have the link,
Really?
and I looked. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know MySpace was a thing. But anyway.
Yeah, I still have a CompuServe email account too.
Really? But you were talking about how you wanted to prove to people that you could sing, and then that's why you went on MTV with your acoustics because of the whole Milli Vanilli, debacle. What's your thoughts on that now that lip syncing? Because I cannot sing, but I'm a performer. Like I would go out and lip sync the heart out of something. But what are your thoughts on that now that it's kind of becoming more popular? Does that bother you?
Well, I mean, it's not that it's becoming more popular. It's become, unfortunately, the new standard. If you think about it. And that's a really great commentary on the difference 30 years ago to now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. I mean, that was so scandalous.
Yes.
Getting caught for lip syncing.
Yeah.
That it was like you were put in a public pillory and you got your Grammy stripped.
Yeah.
And now, years ago, there was no small irony to me that Paula Abdul, of all people, was a singing judge.
Mm-hmm.
Because she also got busted for lip syncing too.
Right.
And Paula's always been very nice to me, but she sings like shit.
Oh my God.
Now again, it's a personal opinion.
Yeah.
But for a singer, she's an incredible dancer.
Yes.
But in order to make her thing happen, live at all, she had to lip sync, and it was scandalous.
Yeah.
Because she had one of those things too where her tape skipped and all that stuff, just like the Milli Vanilli guys.
Exactly, right.
Now, unfortunately for Matthew and myself, when our first record came out, it was literally the year after the whole Milli Vanilli scandal had happened, when the paradigm back then was that it was that scandalous to be not the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Along come Matthew and Gunnar, and we look like Milli Vanilli. And so, everybody's thinking, this can't be real. If you look at this image, it looks like it's a complete fabrication. They're already sons of. None of this is real. And so, in order for Matthew and I to disprove that, we had to go for an entire year to radio stations all over the country with our acoustic guitars and our voices, do their dreaded morning shows, and sing every single day.
Wow.
And we did 3 radio stations a day, every day for a year before we even released our first record, to prepare our industry gatekeepers for our debut and for the fact that, don't dismiss us because we've been the real deal since we were 6.
Right, you had to prove it.
And that was back then, and that was a big deal back then. Now, nowadays, as you mentioned, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Look, no one can go out on stage and sing live and sound decent when they're dancing a 2-hour show.
That's exactly, you have to have that understanding.
You can't do that.
Right.
So, look, I've never been a huge Madonna fan. I love the fact that she never let a talent limitation stop her from being a huge star.
Okay. Right.
The girl's got moxie. I'll give her that. Mm-hmm. And I've got a bunch of examples on my hand of people that never let. I'm not saying that she's one of these, but never let a lack of talent stop them from being stars.
So who are they? Who's on your hand?
Oh, I can't tell you that.
Okay.
That'd be catty.
Okay.
But there are a lot of people, and I'm sure you can actually populate that list with people of your own.
Sure.
That you would think are hugely successful, and you sit there kind of going, I never got this.
Right.
It's like the emperor has no clothes,
mm-hmm.
and that person's naked, and no one can see it.
Right.
And throughout my career, I've seen that. But it proves to me that the most important thing is someone's drive. Someone's drive to do what it is they do is more important than anything. Ozzy happened to be a real talented and a brilliant guy, but even above that, he has such drive for doing what he did. And it's so important, no matter who you are and what you do, that you keep that in mind. As an employer today, I would rather take somebody that had half the skills and ability, but all of the drive and initiative, over someone that had all the skills and initiative and no drive.
Right.
I can't do anything with that, you know?
Of course, sure.
And so our industry, now it really does focus more on the drive. It focuses more on, you know, being passionate about being a product and getting out there and having 1 billion followers and having a big giant show with 1 million dancers and lasers and all that stuff. Whereby Matthew and I are going out with our Nelson show, we're actually not doing any full band shows. We're doing an acoustic duo thing. We're the acoustic duo rock guys.
Yeah.
That's when we went out with Styx and Frampton. We were the guys with 2 acoustic guitars and 2 voices in arenas. Because it's a truth-telling situation. You can't fake that. You know, and with our unique karma, it's still to this day is important to remind people that, we're actually at our strongest when it's just the 2 of us and a couple of acoustic guitars. And every break we've ever had in our career is because of that. Got a record deal that way. We played to our biggest audience, 66,000 people, with just 2 acoustics and the 2 of us. But that was really born from an era when really being real was crucial to your survival. And with the reality paradigm that we're talking about, you mentioned the Kardashians and all that stuff. The one thing that changed is that, back in my day, they said that Warhol said that everyone is famous for 15 minutes. You know, and now it's like everyone's famous for 15 minutes 15 times. And now you don't have to have an extraordinary skill. You just have to do a geek prank on YouTube.
Yes, and you get millions of views. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And millions of views. And on the one hand, just as a person who loves YouTube, it's very entertaining to me. I enjoy that. But what it's done to the arts, so to speak, is it's a travesty that generations aren't even aware of because they don't know what they're missing.
Right.
They don't know that, and it's really sad, they don't know that they should demand that people are the real deal.
Yes.
They should demand that as a bare minimum that people have an extraordinary skill outside of farting through silk.
Yeah.
For real. And that's the family that I come from. I come from a family that was really all about people. You know, for the most part, I mean, Oz coming from Jersey and stuff, he really focused his show on the flyover states. You know, on people who really get this family for the most part are the people that take 2 showers a day, not just one before work, but one after as well.
Wow.
They're people who actually really work.
Yes.
And I love the fact, like, you worked really hard to get where you are and to have everything you have. Right. I was left with less than zero. People think I came from a famous family. My dad was $4 million in debt when he died.
That's what I was going to ask you, because when you said that, you were like the poor kid in the rich neighborhood, I'm like, wait, it didn't really make sense to me because I'm here thinking you have millions of dollars. So how did that happen?
Well, our father made really bad choices.
Okay.
You know, the one cost to being able to be a perpetual kid and be on the road all the time and act like an ostrich and let your problems, swirl around you, is that they really don't go away. They're just left for the people that are back at home.
Okay.
And he made horrible decisions. And when he died, my dad was happy with a guitar in his hand, a show to play, a cheeseburger, a Snickers bar, and a Coke. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was happy with that.
Okay.
But everything else mounted up. And when he died, he was $4 million in debt.
Wow.
And my brother and I actually spent 10 years of our lives after our father died paying back his debts for him.
Wow.
So he would never have to declare bankruptcy. That was never hanging over his name or the family name. And we're very proud of that. We actually were Nelsons. We were upstanding guys. We didn't flip and like walk away from his bad decisions. We're his sons. So we upheld his good name and we did that. But here we are all these years later, just doing what it is we love to do, and it's funny that the music that we actually grew up making was not only the true north in our compasses, but it was really our ticket out. We didn't have a choice. When we got signed by John Colauder to Geffen Records. The truth of the matter is we had $26 left to our name in the bank.
Wow.
And we had to get that record deal. This wasn't a hobby, and this wasn't just something that would be pretty cool to do. This was a matter of survival.
Right.
You know, our dad died, you know, and left us completely unequipped. We were only 18 years old.
Wow.
And so the only thing that we could pray for was to, you know, get out of the ghetto of Beverly Hills with our music.
Wow.
And for us, music has really been our salvation. It's always been there for us. It's been that old friend we could always count on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know people, I mean, music is different things to different people, but to me, it was that shoulder to cry on when someone broke my heart.
Yeah.
It was something to fire me up when I had no energy to go to work that day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it took me, it's like a time machine that you know, if I want to be transported back to summer camp in 1976,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I put on a particular song and I'm there emotionally.
Right.
I don't think there's anything else on this planet, including YouTube videos, that can do that.
Right.
Music has this magical power to do that for people, and I really wish that more people, and I think more now with vinyl being the way it is and stuff like that, I'm really sounding like a relic, but I think people actually are getting to the point where when they get burned out on all the stuff, all the geek jokes and pranks they can see on YouTube, they're looking for something more.
Yes, right. It's more substantial.
And sometimes you know you have to tap into the simple things,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's not about the visuals. Sometimes it's like, man, if I listen to Thriller, man, I don't need to watch the guy dance to get a groove on. It's awesome.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
so speaking of that, I mean, in the news right now, you know, Ariana Grande concert, that's just crazy what happened. Do you think that these types of things are going to affect concerts moving forward? Do you think we need to have more security at concerts? What are your thoughts?
Man, you know, with this all being so fresh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems kind of disrespectful to even talk about it with the amount of kids that died.
It's
You know, I mean, this is not fodder for tabloids. This is really serious.
yeah.
And we're talking about babies.
Yes, kids. Yeah.
And we're talking about babies.
Mm-hmm.
The cowardice involved and the senselessness involved in something like this is unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that thinking that's a virus. It's really so sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know whether or not to be. I feel so many different things.
Right.
I feel sadness. I feel anger.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like to get to the point where it's okay to you and past okay to you to walk into a group of children and kill them and blow them up. I can't wrap my brain around that kind of thinking. And the reason why I can't, and I'm sure the reason why Ariana Grande can't, I've never met her, but she seems like a sweet kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a healer. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I am a teacher and I'm a healer when I'm at my best.
Okay.
And music allows me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Music is my means to that end.
Okay.
And I mean, it's the only thing, it's that calling
Mm-hmm.
that is the only thing strong enough that has a pull stronger than being with my children, than being with my wife, than being at home and being a participant in my life rather than a spectator.
Right.
You know, I always say that we don't get paid for the time we're on stage.
Mm-hmm.
We get paid for missing the soccer games, for missing the graduations, the birthday parties, for eating bad food, for relationships dissolving, because it's really hard to be gone all the time and keep something cool going.
Very interesting. Sure.
And the thing that makes it all worthwhile is the look on a 12-year-old's face when they're in your crowd and they're saying the words back to you that you wrote
Mm-hmm.
with these wide eyes, and it's the best thing in the world.
Right.
And to take a shit on that
Yeah.
that's what's deplorable,
Yeah.
to use the word. And I'm sad, and I'm pissed,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm frustrated, I'm amazed that it didn't happen sooner.
Yeah, right.
I know it's not going to stop people from having concerts. It's not going to stop people from going out and having public events and, you know, enjoying. I mentioned the big three. You know, enjoying the things in life that make life so rich and so worth living. You know, what it is, it's about being with crowds of like-minded people that hopefully aren't rioting.
Right.
You know, but you know, with crowds of people that are enjoying wonderful music and sisterhood and brotherhood and being a part of that. What's so wonderful about that in this digital age, we can live virtual lives without going anywhere.
Yeah.
We can pretend to be nowadays. We can catfish and pretend to be anybody we want to be without actually doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And the concert or the live sporting event or whatever, which to me is a different kind of concert, but that's an expression of human beauty on a grand scale. And it's something that has to be experienced personally. You can't phone it in. You can't text it. You know, a live concert's wonderful because you're actually there and you're enjoying the moment. And for a moment, you catch lightning in a bottle for a brief 2-hour period of time. And it's inconvenient to leave home and find parking and get your tickets and get a good seat and deal with the idiots standing up on a seat in front of you and all of that stuff. It's inconvenient. But that's what makes it awesome.
Yeah.
We're back to anything given is never appreciated.
Yes.
It's a theme.
It is a theme.
You know, I mean, and you remember concerts that you've been to, not only the ones that you danced for, but the ones you've actually gone to and been at.
Yeah, of course.
And how inconvenient it was to do that.
Yes.
But you remember that was part of the fun.
Yes.
And you got to hang out with your friends, and if you liked that particular artist, you all kind of like formed a gang, and you went there, and you did all that. I mean, that's the tapestry to our lives.
Yeah.
I just feel, just to nutshell what you asked, how do I feel about that?
Yeah.
I feel a million different ways about that. It's never going to be okay.
Right.
There's never any justification for that. There never is. There's no heaven waiting for anybody who does something like that. You know? And this is not a religious comment. It's not a racial issue. This is a human issue. And when you've gotten so desensitized that blowing up babies seems to be the answer, this isn't little Johnny didn't get enough love when he was a kid.
Right.
We're past that now. You know, so, you know, the only thing I can say, I know that Ariana Grande canceled her tour. I hope she doesn't. I hope she doesn't. Because it's that exact music, it's the concert itself that the world needs in order to heal.
Right.
In order to find understanding. In order to get to the place where doing something like that would never even be thought of.
Right.
That's what it is we do at our best. So my answer to you is, I hope that the concerts keep on going, they get bigger and better.
Okay.
I pray for understanding. You know, I really honestly do. And I hope that things like that are stopped before they can manifest. You know, whatever that means. You know, obviously it starts with understanding and it starts with love and all that stuff. But, you know, I'm a carrot or the stick guy. So, you know, I mean, it's one of those things with me where it's not going to stop me from doing shows.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was curious if that would have an effect. Now, you mentioned about being a healer, and I was reading on your Skype profile that you're a self-proclaimed hedonist and sensualist. So how did that happen? Like, is that just something natural for you, where it comes natural to want to heal and feel a certain way?
Well, no, I mean, not to get all woo or anything like that. I think the comment that I was making is, you know, I always want to, I mean, starting by, I want to make sure that I'm always a guy who's working to live, not living to work.
Okay.
And part of that makes me feel my most human is, as I mentioned, what I call the big three, the trifecta. You know, great love / sex, great music, and great food. Those are the big three things to me. Okay. They actually fuel me and keep me going. And what I realized, the through line in those three things is that they're experiential, meaning you have to be present to win. You're the one that has to experience it. You can't be taught about it. You can't be told about it. You can't read about it. to really get the flavor of the experience. And it's the definition of true art, all of those three things, because they're here for the moment, experienced individually and personally, and then they're gone.
Right.
They're here and then they're not. And you have to be the one that experiences it.
Right.
Just like great love, great rock, and great food. Those big three things. So all of those have to do with your senses. Right. So yeah, I'm a sensualist. I definitely am. I'm a hedonist because I like to squeeze, all of the flavor out of life that I can. Mm-hmm. I'm not complacent. I grew up as a young man. I lost my best friend to a plane crash and was reminded of the fact that, we don't like to think about the fact that this could be your great waking up morning. You don't know. I don't know. I still have to remind myself of that every day because, man, I'm a good worker, man. I love the doing. I actually love being in the studio. I love writing. I love rehearsing and performing. I love doing all that stuff. And I'm so driven that the byproduct of that is a lot of times I stop to smell the roses. I forget to. Okay. And so calling myself a self-proclaimed hedonist and sensualist reminds me that the reason why we do all the things we do is to be able to enjoy the big three.
Yes. Okay. So
with family, friends, and loved ones, of course.
Yeah, of course. Well, then what is life without that? You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, okay, so you're going to be at Borgata on July 14th. So you'll be at Borgata on July 14th, so we can look forward to your concert then in Atlantic City. Is there a website where we can find more information about you?
Man, we're all over the web. If you just search Gunnar Nelson, I'm going to come up.
Okay.
And I'm not to be confused with the UFC fighter, who, by the way, kicks ass, which is good.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the NelsonBrothers.com, we're there. We're on all the different media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. But just come find us. Come find us out there. All the information is up there. And, of course, the information for the show is on the Borgata website as well.
Right.
And, man, we're looking forward to basically coming home and checking out this awesome venue with the coolest people on planet Earth.
I'll be.